I don't know why it took me so long to realize it, but obviously I talk a lot about the Stoics, and I was thinking, it occurred to me one day that Stoicism was ancient philosophy to Marcus Aurelius, right? So if Zeno founds the philosophy in the 4th century BC, by the time Marcus Aurelius gets to it, it's like 500 years old. So it's like Shakespeare is to me. So like, I think of that as this period that all shared a set of values and ideas and beliefs. And in fact, they were separated by hundreds and hundreds of years. And so they must have looked at that as classical antiquity, in the way that I look at all of them as one large piece of classical antiquity. But they're not. And so it's like, oh, we're actually thinking about the philosophy. It creates an empathy because you go, oh, you're thinking about the philosophy the same way that I'm thinking about it.
What's the meme you sometimes see, that Cleopatra was born closer to the iPhone than the pyramids being built, right? And that's often a good way of thinking. Yeah, because
she's like, look at these beautiful old things. We don't know how they made them. You know, like that's she has the same bafflement.
The English medieval version of that is Stonehenge. So like you go, Stonehenge is kind of old, and castles are made of stone, and they're kind of old. So maybe the Middle Ages and Stonehenge are quite close. No, in sort of Henry V's time, Henry II's time, other end of the Plantagenet dynasty, they were looking at Stonehenge the same way we're looking at Stonehenge going, what the hell is that thing, and who put it up and how? And their answer was like, well, maybe Merlin, Arthur's kind of magician, transported the stones from Ireland, and other people going, oh, come on, give me a break. No, that didn't happen. But it's like a real head scratcher, and only a couple of years ago, I mean, there's still debate about how did they do this. There was just some research, 2 months ago, that said some of the stones in Stonehenge didn't come from Wales, they came from Scotland. Like,
how?
That's the great question of Stonehenge. You'll never be able to attack the question of why, I think, but you can get pretty close to how. And there was a great book called How to Build Stonehenge, which came out 2 years ago, which really got close to, okay, I think this is how. We can get quite close to how. Sort of a bit of experimental archaeology, a bit of sort of theory, but the why is the thing that's lost.
Yeah, when Jefferson, when they started to discover some like mammoth tusks and stuff in America, Jefferson doesn't necessarily know for sure that they're extinct. Like they just could be on the other side of the mountains that no one's been on the other side of. Well, and there's still this ongoing fucking mystery of it.
Well, and here we are, like back again with we're such a weird. It's such a weird time to be alive in that we've mapped the whole world. Oh, we haven't mapped the deep seas, but like the landmass of the world is fully mapped.
Yeah.
And that, again, separates us from almost everyone that's ever lived before. And just those sort of simple, basic assumptions of like, well, I know what the Earth looks like. And it's not that other people, they thought it was flat. They just didn't know what was in most of it, or like a large parts of it. There was still this incredible mystery about the geography of the world, which is so different to our, we have great anxieties about the state of the world, evidently, at the moment. But one of them is not, I wonder what lies beyond that mountain range.
Yes.
It's like, I'll just look at Google Maps.
Yeah, like they say the seminal moment in America is the closing of the frontier.
Right.
And really that's a global thing. There isn't that vague sense of, well, I wonder if it's over here. There's not that sort of that pervasive mystery, I guess, even though there's so much stuff we don't understand.
Yeah, but it's
not part of the psyche,
right? But it's so interesting, and then sometimes you'll kind of go too far in the other direction and go, well, this medieval world, this world of Henry V, was incredibly parochial, and people never went beyond their own village, and international travel was unheard of. And then there's a lot of global historians now would say, well, there's Valerie Hansen was the most popular book recently. Well, no, actually a product around the time of the Vikings could theoretically travel from the Americas all the way around the entire world. It's not impossible. There is a sort of thin gossamer thin skein of globalization, which is totally the wrong word to use, but it does. But that's what's so fun about history.
How weird must that have been? So yeah, it was a parochial world, just as it is now. There are people now. I remember one time I was writing about Vicksburg. So my wife and I went to Natchez, Mississippi, and we were staying there for a night, and then we're going to Vicksburg. These are Civil War battlefields. And we're talking to the waitress, and we were like, we're going to Vicksburg tomorrow. You know anything about it? And she's like, I've never been. It was like 45 minutes away.
Right.
She says, never been. And so And meanwhile, we could have been talking to the person at the next table, and they've been everywhere you could imagine in the world. And so, like, it must have been so surreal, though, in the ancient world where you did. People would live and die within like a 5-mile radius or something, and then there were people that had been to different that had just recently discovered new continents.
Yeah, well, Henry V, only because it's what I'm thinking about at the moment, great example. He's the guy who leads, these armies predominantly made up of English and some Welsh longbowmen, many of whom, because they're sort of, peasant stock, are village guys. They haven't probably travelled in a wide radius away from the village. It'll be sort of in the dozens of miles maximum. And then suddenly they're travelling to France. Wow, across the sea.
Yeah.
To see the sea for some people would just be wild if you lived in the middle of England. And yet you've got Henry himself, whose father, Henry Bolingbroke, was a sort of great chivalrous knight of the late 14th, early 15th century. Well, that guy had been he jousted in France with Boucicaut. He'd travelled to Prussia on crusade with the Teutonic Knights. He'd been to Jerusalem. He'd actually been to Christ's sepulchre. He'd be, and seen the tomb and come back with exotic animals and kind of great stories and memories and Jerusalem stuck in his mind all his life. And on his deathbed, he was in the Jerusalem chamber of Westminster Abbey. Henry V on his deathbed's talking about Jerusalem as well. So these ideas are like fixed in their minds of these faraway places, just as you're kind of rubbing shoulders with the people who've never been anywhere.
Yes.